welcome to Drawing with the Noodler's ink Ahab Flex Pen. I'm going to show you how you can use this pen, which is quite a good writing tool, like a fountain pen for writing, flexing, lots of expression in your writing, but you can also use it as an art pen, which is actually what I mainly use it for. This is my go-to drawing pen. I use this to doodle in my notebooks, draw things all the time, and there's a few reasons for that. One, the nib is super expressive. It's great to draw with. Two, I'm using platinum carbon ink, which is great because it's waterproof once it dries, and that means you can put watercolor washes over top of it. But that also means that it can be really tough on pens. There's a lot of pigment in there, and it can gum up pens, especially if you don't clean them regularly, care for them. So you have to be careful what kind of pens you put in. Luckily, the Ahab is relatively inexpensive, which is good because if I was to ruin it, I wouldn't be heartbroken. Secondly, it is easy to disassemble and clean. And even if I do ruin some pieces, I can actually just replace them. So that is why this is pretty much my go-to drawing pen. Now what I'm going to do is talk about also why I use this. I used to use these all the time. This is a Micron Pigma drawing pen. And honestly, I've always loved these. They super black ink. Archival, waterproof, you can put watercolor washes over top of them, but I've just come to hate the idea of something so disposable. Once this is done, they don't sell replacement cartridges, they don't sell anything like that, so you're just kind of stuck throwing this in the garbage, and that's a big piece of plastic. Well, not a giant piece of plastic, that's a piece of plastic that has to go in the garbage. It's wasteful. This can just be refilled over and over and over again. So there's that, and also very consistent lines. You can get a little bit of variation if you lift it and push it back down again. Thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin. But it is nothing compared to this pen. Now this pen, the Noodler's Ahab, sometimes leaks a bit. It happens quite often. I think part of that is the fact that I have carved the ebonite in this to increase the ink flow, to make it better for drawing. And it makes it better for drawing, but I have to deal with ink coming out. Also, I converted an eyedropper, and it's getting a little bit low, so there might be too much air in there that warms up and expands and pushes ink out. I'm okay with that. But why would I use this for drawing? That's a nice fine line too. Finer than that. I use the back, well, it's the same. Even finer. And then big old blobs of ink can come out when I flex it. There's actually a blob that came out there. And I carry away tube. So there you go. Now, I don't really have a plan for what I'm going to draw, so I'm just going to start doodling, which is what I like to do. I like to start with the eyes. Right now I got too much ink coming out of here. Give me a second while I blow this up a bit. I watched The Dark Crystal again recently, and it's kind of inspired me to draw kind of bird-headed, Skeksis type creatures. So I've been drawing a lot of those lately. Now, this is the first video I have on YouTube here where I'm drawing, and I want you to know that I've not included this because I think that I'm some amazing artist who has a need to be seen by the world to show off my incredible talent. That's just basically not the case. I can generally make what I want to draw look like what I planned for it to draw to look like, but never as good as how it looked in my mind. So I would not call myself some sort of great artist, but I think that it is kind of neat to show what these pens can do as art tools. Now, let me show you why. The reason why this is such a neat pen for drawing. So these are all relatively fine lines I'm working with here. I'm just lightly touching the pen to the paper. Sometimes using the back because I have it wet enough that I can write with the back and I get a finer line than if I use just the side you're supposed to use. So I can use it in reverse. Let me show you. He folds in his neck and then his jaw. You can get such an expressive line using this pen, thick to thin. It is not like this pen, but you know, fine and get a nice line. Any expression I'm going to give is going to be from me breaking the line. Oops. But here, the expression comes from the flexibility of the nib. And how wet I have with the ink just kind of gushing out. It's just really nice to write with. Write smoothly. The neck's got to turn up a little bit here, I think. Broaden these lines a little bit. Some texture in there. And there you go. I've doodled a Skeksis kind of thing. Doesn't really look like any of the ones from the movie, really. But there you go. So that is why I've done this, and I hope you enjoy watching it. I'm actually going to show you the water fastness of this platinum carbon ink and show you why I use it in a minute, but that needs to dry. So I shall continue to doodle a little bit. Maybe because I'm a narcissist. Whenever I doodle, I start drawing my own cartoon version of myself. I'm holding a cup of Starbucks because I'm addicted to overpriced coffee. steam coming out of it. I'm going to draw myself a little more roly-poly than I am in real life. At least in this moment. I'm getting older. And the older I get, the more pronounced this thing gets. That's okay. And it looks like I've drawn myself right off the paper. And I think that this is a great drawing pen. I really do. I can't say enough good things about drawing with this pen. I've loved it since I picked it up, and I'm happy with it. Now I'm going to pause the video here for a moment, and then I'm going to get some watercolors, and I'll put some watercolor washes over this. Not because this is a beautiful painting that needs to be, or a beautiful illustration that needs to be colored, but just to give you an idea of the water fastness of this ink. Because I think that platinum carbon ink, well, you can see it is black. There's where black goes on thick, even where it goes on thin, it's not bluish, it's not purplish, it's not grayish, it's a black. I may do some ink reviews for drawing at some point, but right now just rest assured this is black. And it's just when I put some watercolor in here, you'll see that once it's on the paper, once it dries, chunk, it is there. There's no removing it. Anyways, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so it's pretty dry. It's a little smudgy here because I thought it was dry maybe 20 minutes ago, and I stuck my fingers in it, and it was not. Understandable. I dumped a lot of ink, especially around that eye and there. The pen is running very wet then, but it should still be able to give you a pretty good, decent idea how it should work. So I'm just using just a brush, these are just cheap watercolors in a tube that I had squished out into this tray and let dry, because I wanted something I could travel with or just carry around with me. So, alright. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. One, because this is just a doodle to kind of prove a point or show something. And two, because this isn't actually watercolor paper. I need to move that so I don't have to reach in front of the camera. This isn't watercolor paper, so no, it's too much. Just want it a bit redder. Yeah, so this isn't watercolor paper, so you can't actually take too much of this stuff before it starts to get unusually wrinkled. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that part, then give it a little bit of texture. Oh. I'm just using a big old brush. I want this to bleed into the red a little bit. I'm just using a big old brush. I'm not being too fine with my details here. Just want to show you that I have a lot of water in here right now. Like just wet gobs of it. And the ink isn't bleeding, it's staying put. Which is what you want out of a pen you're planning on putting water goes over. See, it's bleeding a little bit here, you can see, but that's just because it hasn't completely dried. And so, oh, I put a shadow across the whole thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, it hasn't completely dried, and so it has a little bit of ink coming off of it. Give that some yellow. I'm not giving this any time to dry, to build up any layers or anything, just throwing some paint on there. And throwing a lot of water just to show that it's not going to go anywhere. Should be more of a gray color. And there you have it. Great ink for drawing, even though it's a little bit dangerous. Beautiful pen for drawing. And I hope that in the future you might consider using your fountain pens as drawing tools, because I think that that is a great way to use them, to get a little more out of them than you might if you just use them as a pen. So, thanks for watching, and goodbye.